I used to think nothing could surprise me during a late-night shift at a 24-hour laundromat. Even the oddest characters had their patterns. Drifters curling up between humming machines, college kids fighting sleep at the folding tables, single parents clutching laundry baskets like shields. But that Thursday, the air felt different before I even unlocked the door. I remember standing outside, my breath swirling in the weak fluorescent light, clutching my keys tighter than usual. The storefront glass reflected the empty strip mall parking lot behind me. But for a split second, I had the undeniable sense that something inside was looking back. It must have been the wind, I told myself as I stepped in, flicking on the lights. The pale tiles gleamed in rows, polished but never really clean, always holding the ghost of detergent, mildew, and whatever people tracked in from the night. The machines lined the walls like silent sentinels, silver doors gaping open, their insides yawning for dirty clothes. The usual background drone, the hum of electronics, the soft rattle of pipes, was oddly muted, as if the whole place was holding its breath. The clock above the change machine blinked 11:03, and I settled behind the counter, taking inventory and scribbling on my clipboard. Usually I'd have the radio on low, but tonight the static seemed louder than the music. After a minute, I turned it off altogether. The silence felt almost tangible, thick enough to press against my eardrums. I was used to being alone here, but tonight's solitude felt more like abandonment. Half an hour passed with nothing but the rhythmic tick of the clock and the faint buzz of an overhead fly. I started reorganizing the lost and found shelf, folding a child's jacket with a frayed sleeve, stacking single socks. That's when the first odd thing happened. The lights over the dryers on the far end flickered, then steadied, as if someone had walked just beneath them and kept going. I froze, half crouched, waiting for the footsteps I never heard. Nobody walked in. No car pulled up. Just that hiccup in the lights, deliberate and slow. I told myself it was a loose fluorescent tube, nothing more. Still, I found myself glancing at the darkened glass on the door, looking for movement outside. The only thing out there was my own reflection, paler than usual, eyes a little too wide. A few minutes later, I went to restock detergent pods near the vending machine. My sneakers squeaked on the tile, too loud in the hush. As I bent to retrieve a dropped packet, I heard it. The unmistakable click of a dryer door swinging shut. Not a slam. Just a soft, purposeful close. I straightened and scanned the rows. Every dryer door was ajar, same as always. But the sound had been real, and it hadn't come from the direction of the machines closest to me. I walked the length of the laundromat, pushing each metal door open and closed, testing their hinges. They all groaned in protest, far louder than the noise I'd heard. By now, that knot in my stomach had tightened. I kept replaying the sound, how unhurried it was, as if someone was trying not to draw attention but didn't care if they were heard at all. I tried to laugh it off, muttering about old buildings and metal warping in the cold. Still, my hands shook as I wiped down the folding tables, and I started humming just to fill the emptiness. Just after midnight, I was counting quarters when I noticed a smell that didn't belong. Not soap, not bleach. Something sharp and metallic, like the air before a thunderstorm. It prickled at my nose, and for a moment, the memory of a hospital emergency room flashed through my mind. I glanced up, expecting to see a puddle, or maybe a spill from the vending machine, but the floor was spotless. The smell wasn't coming from any single place. It seemed to hover, heavy and invisible, settling in the corners and behind the machines. I paced around, pretending to look for a source, but really, I just wanted to keep moving, to prove with every step that nothing was lurking just out of sight. That's when I heard the first whisper. It was so faint I thought it was the hiss of the steam pipes at first, but then it twisted into a word. My name. Soft, like breath on glass. Kayla. The syllables barely formed, almost lost in the whir of the ceiling fan. I jerked around, heart thudding, but there was no one. I scanned the security mirror above the detergent machines, watching its warped reflection for any sign of movement. Nothing. The air felt heavier now, as if the building itself was leaning in, listening for my response. Telling myself it was just a trick of exhaustion, I forced a laugh, shaky and unconvincing. Maybe I'd been here too many nights in a row. I tried to call my boyfriend, but the call dropped before a single ring. Service always sucked in the back half of the strip mall, but that night it felt personal, like the dead zone had crept closer, wrapping itself around the laundromat just for me. I stood at the front counter, phone in hand, debating whether to prop open the door for some fresh air. That's when the machines started up, 3 washers all at once, cycling on with a thunk and a gurgle. I hadn't touched a single button. My hands went cold. I hurried over, expecting to see someone hiding. Maybe a prankster who'd slipped in while my back was turned. But the doors were still open, empty, the drums spinning with nothing inside. The water sloshed and slapped against stainless steel, echoing off the tiles. I reached out, hesitated, then yanked the plug on the nearest washer. As soon as I did, the machine shuddered and stopped, but the other 2 kept spinning. I circled behind them, eyes darting to the shadows between the machines, feeling like something might dart out if I looked away too long. Finally, I unplugged the other washers. The silence that followed was worse than the noise. Complete, unnatural. The smell from before pressed in again, stronger, almost sweet now, making the back of my throat ache. I stepped outside for a moment, the cold hitting me like a slap. The parking lot was empty, streetlights flickering as if about to burn out. A breeze rattled a shopping cart against the curb, and I almost wished it would roll my way, just proof that something normal still moved in the world. I lingered by the door, searching for a reason to call it a night, to lock up early and face whatever lecture my boss would give me. But I kept telling myself there was a logical reason for everything. Old wiring, temperature changes, maybe even a carbon monoxide leak making me loopy. When I stepped back in, the air felt thicker, the smell even more pronounced. I checked the thermostat, 68 degrees, normal. The clock above the change machine still blinked, but the second hand had stopped dead on the 12. I tapped the glass. Nothing. The realization crept in that time was passing everywhere but in here. Then, I saw it. A wet footprint on the tile near the washers. Just one. Narrow and barefoot, pointing toward the back hallway that led to the utility closet. I stared for a long time, waiting for it to fade or for some obvious explanation to click into place. I even touched the tile. Ice cold, damp. I looked back at the door. She? Door was still locked, my keys lying exactly where I'd left them on the counter. No way anyone had come in or out. My pulse fluttered in my wrists as I crouched, tracing the edge of the footprint with a trembling finger. The water was already evaporating, leaving behind a thin ring as if whatever made it was never meant to stay long. I straightened slowly, senses straining for another sound, any hint of movement. The laundromat was quiet now, oppressively so, except for the fluorescent lights overhead, humming in nervous, staccato bursts. I backed toward the front, making myself smaller, pressing up against the counter as if it might shield me. The security mirror warped my reflection, stretching my face into a pale, anxious mask. My breath fogged the glass countertop, and I found myself counting heartbeats, desperate for something to break the stillness. Then I heard it again. A whisper, urgent now, coming from the back hallway. Not my name this time, just a rasp of syllables, words I couldn't quite catch. It sounded like pleading. The hairs on my arms prickled as I stood, torn between running for the door and needing to know what, if anything, was back there. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, but I couldn't. I told myself I needed to check for intruders, for a leak, for any rational explanation that would put this night back in its place. I crept down the narrow hallway, shoes squeaking with every step. The overhead bulb flickered, casting the walls in sickly yellow. The utility closet door was closed, a trickle of water leaking from beneath it. My hand hesitated on the knob. I told myself, open it fast, get it over with. But my body wouldn't listen, moving slow, as if something on the other side was pulling against me. When I finally swung the door open, the smell hit me full force. Wet, metallic, tinged with something sweet and rotten. The closet was empty, except for the mop bucket, half full of cloudy water. I stared at it, numb, until I noticed the surface trembling, tiny ripples like something had just disturbed it. That was when the humming started, deep and low, rising from the floor. A vibration, almost too low to hear, but strong enough that I felt it in my teeth. The walls seemed to pulse, the tiles under my feet flexing ever so slightly, as if the building was breathing beneath me. I staggered back, clutching the doorframe for support, my senses all jumbled. For a few seconds I thought I saw movement in the bucket's reflection, something dark and formless, shifting behind me. I whipped around. Nothing. Just the endless row of washers, their doors all hanging open now, gaping like hungry mouths. I fumbled back toward the main room, desperate for light, for the neutral buzz of the machines. But the lights overhead began to blink, one by one, slow at first, then faster, plunging the laundromat in and out of a strobe-lit twilight. Each time the light flickered off, the shadows seemed to move, stretching longer, bending toward me. I stumbled to the front desk, grabbed the keys, cold in my sweating hand, and tried to unlock the door. The key jammed in the lock, refusing to turn, and in the brief darkness between blinks, I saw a shape reflected in the glass door, a tall, wavering silhouette, standing exactly where I had been a moment before. My chest tightened until I thought I'd pass out. I slammed my fist against the glass, willing something, anything, to shatter this spell. But the glass held, and the reflection lingered, longer than it should have, darker than the night behind it. I turned away, refusing to look again, and pressed myself against the